And Veronica Smith. I will call the roll. Mandro Gonzaga. Newly appointed City of Milton Rep. Frankie Bacon.
Present.
Chet Rosenberger.
Present.
Heather Holmes.
Present.
Jason Simpson.
Here.
Casey Smith.
Present.
Tony Fry.
Here.
John Fox.
Present.
And Kimberly Griswold.
Present.
We have a quorum. And we'll turn it over to the Chair, Kimberly Griswold.
Good morning. A call meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from December 11th, 2025?
Motion to approve minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Minutes approved. The next item on the agenda is confirm nominations for the chair and co-chair. Motion for nominations for the chair.
Motion.
Look. So we are confirming the nominations. And Kimberly was nominated for chair. And Heather is nominated for co-chair.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion approved. So the vote,
Was that a motion to accept the nominees?
yes,
Okay.
and now vote on the confirmations. For all say yes,
Yes.
Yes.
all say nay. Co-chair and chair, confirmed.
Who's second? Yeah, who was the second?
Next item on the agenda, I would like to introduce the new representative for Militant, Frankie Jackson. Thank you. Welcome, Frankie. Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here. This is a very important board and I'm proud to represent the city of Millington. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And now for public comments.
Thanks. We have public comments. 2-minute limit, please. My first. Mr. Banbury. Scott.
What do I do with myself? You gotta get up here.
Yeah.
All right, I'm hopefully not gonna take all 2 minutes here. I just wanna say I'm excited. When I first came to Memphis in 1989, one of the first things I looked into was groundwater contamination issues. I grew up in a geeky household with an analytical chemist and a hydrogeologist in the Bay Area of California, where they have serious groundwater problems. When I looked into things here, I found that in 1987, we had taken the step forward beyond what any other community in the state of Tennessee and really any other state in this region had done and formed this groundwater board. That was impressive to me. In the last 10 years, we've seen a whole lot of progress with the formation of Protect Our Aquifer and increased public attention to the issues that this board deals with. This is all positive, but we have a long ways to get. One of the things I'd like to suggest is that we need to have enhanced public opportunity and accessibility to information. It was hard for me to actually find out what was really on the agenda. I could never find any of the contested cases anywhere on the internet. And when I looked at like the Shelby County site, it was out of date. It did not reflect the current composition of this board or have any information links to any of the things that were important here. A couple other websites are floating out there that are not updated either. So one of the things I hope that really comes out of the new bylaws is an enhanced community public participation in these meetings and accessibility to information. And again, I applaud the work to protect our aquifer and the work they've done to make this board be more transparent and more proactive in its work. And it's super exciting to see that many members of the public here, because other groundwater board meetings I've come to, there's not been anybody from the public. So thank you.
Next, we have Jan Mansfield.
Thank you. I would like to read an email that my husband and I sent on January 15th of this year to our county commissioner. And it reads, we live at 6845 Ling Drive in Millington, unincorporated area. We have a well on our property that we've had it on our property for over 30 years. Our primary water source use is city water, and we use the well for lawn and garden irrigation. We have been paying $100 per year for someone to come and test our water, which is always passed. There has been no issues until today when we received a permit fee for $500 per year. This is a substantial increase for anyone, but we are retired seniors on fixed income. This comes in addition to an approximately $600 property tax increase also. When does the cost increase to live in this county stop? We feel powerless other than moving elsewhere. We're both lifelong Shelby County residents and have lived at this address for 32 years. Thanks for listening, and any help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Next, we have Christine Green.
Good morning. My name is Christine Green, and I'm a resident of Ansibon community in South Memphis. And our neighborhood actually sits on a known breach in the aquifer located beneath the former Memphis Defense Depot, a Superfund site with a history of toxic contamination that poses a serious risk to our groundwater. And it's an active concern member in our community. I have participated in the water board use program, and we're working diligently to develop a community-led groundwater protection plan for our area. We are reaching out to you for your support and partnership in protecting this vital resource. Thank you.
Next, we have Judge Wilford.
Hi, I'm Joe Williford. I'm a native Shelby County, and my sons are actually 6th generation Shelby County, and I live just the other side of Wolf River there. When I was young, we knew we were blessed with pure water in this community. And back then we thought the aquifer was unlimited and that it was far enough down, was protected from any harm. Then when reports started coming out from the University of Memphis Caesar Center that there were risks, my pride in our local water felt threatened. I wanted to know more. I got involved with Protect Our Aquifer and learned about the risks, groundwater pollution and breaches, which allow it into the aquifer, the reduction of wetlands and the blockage of the recharge zone that can reduce the rate of recharge or pollute it, and overuse, which can lower aquifer levels and draw down pollution. I learned that these risks are not just hypothetical, they are real and detectable. Protecting the aquifer from these risks is such a complex problem spanning states. This board can't solve all of this, but it needs to do everything it can to fulfill its charter and be an example to other communities. I'm especially interested in seeing a plan that will address each of the risks, step up efforts to monitor what's actually happening within the aquifer around wells and breaches that represent exposure points that include communication both within our community and outward to neighboring counties and government organizations to help keep us all pulling in the same direction. The Protect Our Aquifer organization, with its connections to the scientific community and experience with outreach, can be your best ally in doing that. I strongly encourage you to work in direct partnership with Protect Our Aquifer to offer this plan and achieve these objectives. Thank you.
Next, we have Carl Richard.
My name is Carl Richards. I'm Chair of the Board of Directors for Protect Our Aquifer. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you. I know this is just another thing on your list of things that participating in today, and we appreciate the fact that the board is here. The county staff are very concerned about where we're going. First thing, I just want to say the bylaws that you're going to talk about today. I hope that we can pass those with some suggested revisions, because we need to make this more public. There's really no excuse for this board to act any differently than other county boards or county-wide organizations. So I urge you to just increase the ability to communicate and have a transparent mission for this organization. 2, the plan. We're presenting today not a plan, we're presenting a blueprint, and it's you look at the tenets of what we're presenting, and they come straight out of the piece of the ordinance that created this board of directors. Well, that's over 35 years ago, and we're just trying to provide the basics of this is what the groundwater plan looks like. This thing is not made in concrete. It's not made to be implemented exactly right now. It's something for us to provide the basis of discussion, the rationale behind those points of discussion. And we really look forward to working with you on this. Thank you very much.
And next we have Mr. Paul Klein.
All right. Ooh, I'll take my hat off to this. Oh my goodness, I'm glad to be here. Hi, my name is Paul Klein. I'm co-chair of the Climate Reality Project's Memphis chapter and vice chair of Sierra Club's Chickasaw group. I have just 4 points to share this morning. First, I want to acknowledge the importance of this board and name that you are the best line of defense that we have for our aquifer. Second, I'm really so excited that after 39 years of incredible growth of residential, commercial, industrial development in our county, this board is on the verge of creating a groundwater protection plan that will fulfill its purpose, which was stated back in 1987, of protecting the Memphis Sands Aquifer. Third, I want to commend you all for working with Protect Our Aquifer towards groundwater protection. This partnership with experts will help this board to commit to a scientific, transparent, and community-centered groundwater protection plan. By the way, a helpful way to facilitate even more community engagement would be making all of your meeting documents available to the public at least 10 days ahead of these meetings. We would appreciate that. Fourth, Shelby County has a real opportunity here to create the premier groundwater protection plan in Tennessee. which would then provide a model for other countries that counties, excuse me, probably countries too, that lie within the aquifer's critical recharge zone. In closing, some original water protectors, the Lakota people of the West, say, Mini Wachoni, water is life. Thank you for protecting ours.
Yeah.
Next section on the agenda, public comments.
We just did public comment.
I'm sorry, appeals.
Could I have the appellants that are representing, please stand, James Scott, David Mays, William Bond, Phillip Langsdon, the Scheldt Estate, and William Hudson. And could I have the health department representative who will state your case regarding these appeals stand? Everyone stand, please. No, fine. Could everyone raise your right hand? Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. We will start with James Scott.
Mr. James Scott, has applied for a water well at 12,205 Donnelson Road. Public water is available to the site. The applicant is requesting to utilize a 4H case 22 to 24 gallon per minute water production well. The applicant states that the intended use of the well is for water and livestock, lake retention, irrigation, and maintaining forest land according to the field forest management plan. It is further explained that irrigation will be required to support new forest growth for trees. The lot is 15.03 acres, and the well can meet siting criteria.
Coming back. At the request of the board, we asked him to do a few things, and he's coming back with that information concerning the forestry plan that he had, that the board asked him to come back on this one.
Morning. So I was here earlier this year and then got continuous to come back. Give a copy of the forest plan that we had. Mr. Brian to take a look at. Just to recap, our property is on the green belt. We do have a home on the property. It's a little over 400 feet off of Donnelson Road. The forest management plan is the intent there is to enhance forest health and wildlife habitat. Irrigation certainly will be beginning to support and cultivate new forest growth. I do have a budget to allow for planting fixture of eastern cedar, white pine, yellow pine, poplar, and oak to reestablish some of the forest that was logged off of it by the previous property. We have about a 1.2 acre pond on the property as well. And right now it is about 5 to 6 feet below on the shoreline of where it normally is at its fullest. That pond was actually constructed last year during the home build. It filled up last year with the amount of rain that we had. Average for the area is somewhere about 52 inches last year, depending on the source. It's anywhere from 60 plus to 70 inches of rain last year. And this year coming up to March, we're at 9.74 inches and average annual rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 13.17. So we're a little bit behind on rainfall this year as well. So we utilize that well to maintain the water level in the pond as well, as long as including irrigation to support the forest growth. Additional livestock, we do plan to put our almost a couple of horses, so we'll see how that goes in the future, but primarily it's maintain water level in the pond and get the property back better than other property and grow trees. That's all I have. Thank you. Any questions for me?
Yes, sir, I do, Mr. Scott.
Okay.
The application with the health department is from 2024, 9/12/2024. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I called them and they do not have your information on file for this property for this particular well driller. Also, the email for the business phone number under the well section 4, the well driller. The email tammy@wilsonwell.com has no longer been employed there for quite some time now.
Okay.
So those are issues with the application for the health department. Number one, might be a little bit outdated. Number two, contact information and the company doesn't have any of your information on file. Secondly, concerning the forest management plan for this property, it's dated and last inspected April 27th, 2007.
Yeah.
Which is 19 years old. I brought this to the attention of the town administrator, Ms. Durant, for the town of Arlington. And she had stated that this particular report is woefully outdated to be used in current day conditions. So those two issues combined with the access of utility water in a reasonable distance from your property, the town of Arlington is against having a well dug at this property.
Research that I've done on the forest plan, I will say, yes, it is old. I couldn't find anything that said forestry plan, it expires. So we can look at getting that updated with some new information there. I understand the well company piece as well. When I filled out the application to submit submitted it to the county, all that information was. And then waiting for this process to happen, I didn't update the application. The application is set with the county until then. So certainly, if we did move forward with that, we would update it with an approved well driller, because that's where that information came from. Wilson Well was an approved well driller on Shelby County's list that I got from the health department as well, as far as that goes. We tend to use somebody who's not approved.
None taken.
But I mean, I do understand that position with the age of the forestry plan. When we applied for a green belt is when we found that forestry plan. The research that I did with the forestry plan is you can either have one professionally done or you can actually do one yourself for the green belt application to get approved for that. So, I mean, I do have something in play based off of that, but that is an official document that actually was on file with the county that we got when we purchased the property.
The only other thing that came up in meeting with the town administrator was that the report from 2007 was actually in the previous owner's name, Mr. Guron, and not yours.
Yes, yeah, it would have been on there, correct? Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Yeah. The health department can address the application with the date and years. If you notice, this is the most recent copy of the property on the assessor's property. When his application was first put in, there was nothing on the property. I have to have things that I can measure this well from, but being a vacant lot, there was nothing. So I had to wait till something was being built so that we could take the criteria to make sure it fit the criteria. That explains the difference in how long when he put his application in and the date that it was. was approved by our department. In that meantime, we found out that Jamie Allen had left the property, had left with Wilson's will. In that case, all we do is ask them to resubmit that application, because Wilson is still a drilling company. It's just Jamie is no longer there with them. So that would be just a matter of resubmitting that application with the driller's name now, according to Wilson.
Has that been done?
No, that has not been done.
I have another question. So. An updated I'll speak loudly, an updated forest plan. I mean, looking at this, we're talking about, you know, acres of what you have on the property. Was that all done in 2007? Like the pictures from 2007 as well?
That was all done in 2007, but I will tell you that information has not changed. Those type trees, the layout, the acreage, all of that stuff is the same, because the layout of the property is the same. The only thing that hasn't changed is there is a home site now on the property. But as far as the actual split of the acreage in the forestry plan for trees and type trees is the same.
And the irrigation for the trees, are you planning on doing any sort of harvesting and selling of them in the future? Or is this just for the reestablishment of trees on the property?
Mainly reestablishment of it, but yes, in order to manage that property, there will be selective harvesting. I don't plan to go in and cut massive trees down and do anything of the sort, but there will be selective harvesting along the way to allow proper tree growth and spread as it goes along.
So what would and only because I'm, you know, I don't know, I guess what question, but what would a new forest management plan updated entail and look like? Would you go out there yourself and have to resurvey? Would you need to hire somebody?
There's a couple of different options. I mean, I can actually look up a template and do a forestry plan myself and sign it. I can reach out to a point of contact to have it professionally done, similar to what that one is done. So there's two options out there for that, to get it updated on with a current date with, say, my name on it.
And does the town of Arlington, because I don't know about, or is it Shelby County with the forestry? Are there any sort of like bylaws or ordinances that are laid out in terms of like what needs to be submitted or approved? Like I know, you know, Shelby County, to cut down trees on your property, you need, you know, to have you need to application, all that sort of stuff. So I was just wondering if town of Arlington or Shelby County has some sort of ordinance or bylaw that lays out, you know, there's some sort of statute of how old the forestry plan can be. I'm just not sure. I was curious if there's some sort of ordinance or bylaw that either town of Arlington has.
I'm uncertain of a bylaw or ordinance.
I was just curious.
This is a privileged conversation with me and the town administrator.
Gotcha.
And
Sorry.
might be as a matter of opinion, but her opinion does carry some weight.
Oh,
And
100%.
I was just thinking in that over the past 19 years, surely the topography and the growth of the foliage in that area has grown since such time. And without the well water being used for irrigation. So I'd like to offer, when and if you do go for a walkabout on your property to reassess this yourself, I'd be happy to go with you. And not only to learn about your property, but to learn things in general.
Okay, I mean, that'd be great. Like I said, the previous owner to us had that property wall. So a lot of that growth that would have been in there, those larger trees have now been moved off of the property. So those trees have
Root ball and all.
no, not root ball. There's a lot of rotten stumps.
Would that would have been since 2007, like the owner would have had that property logged after this forest management plan was surveyed?
Yes,
Okay.
there was harvesting done prior to our ownership of it. And I would also say too, with the well process, originally, we wanted to have a well for our home and everything else because we were over 300 feet off the road. We were 400 plus feet off the road. And last time I was digging around in the ordinance, there was a 300-foot limit. If you were over 300 feet from the road, you were allowed to at least apply for a well and ask those questions and stuff. But to this process, I do live in a house with no water right now. So
Now, excuse the interruption, but
yes, sir.
I believe within that ordinance, it states without the presence of city water, if you're 300 feet away. So we might want to revisit that.
I will have to go back and look at it. When I did read it, it was an ask of city water, but if you were over 300, but I can go back and revisit that. That's not a problem. But we are here. I am requesting to put a well on property or forest growth, maintain a 1.2 acre pond, which is also in the ordinances of the ability to apply for a well and have a well on a property in addition to MLGW supplying water to the home site.
I went back out on Monday. I didn't walk in the forest. I took my pictures from afar, but as of Monday, these are some of the pictures of the forest area that's behind his property. So some of the trees are actually still there, like I
Were
said.
those not recently done to clear your property for your construction?
The pilot trees you saw there
Yes.
was some that came right out of front where we fixed the home
So
pad.
recently logged.
Those were removed for home site, when we did the home site, and I wouldn't call it raw, but we had to take down we had to take down some of those trees.
Sure.
In there, in the front, for the actual home site piece. But back behind it where, you remember on the site map where you have the narrow neck and then it widens out, all that big square widening out in the backside of our property, that's where the majority of the forest land is and the trees are.
Yeah, Mac Andrews and I met over there prior to
Okay.
construction. Your GC,
Yep.
Mr. Hodges. Can we go full screen on that? Thank you.
This was just walking the back of the property around the lake area, also bearing in mind my safety.
Yes, ma'am. If I do go back there, I will put on my snake chaps, you know, that we're in the spring.
Yeah, but I didn't want to run out. This was the partial picture of the lake. I'm standing down at the fullest end, sport down here facing that way. I could not in my shot get the whole lake.
Will you go back to the pond?
That's one angle of it, and let's do that one, and that's it.
I like how it sets below the property, able to catch that rainwater and that storm water to help recharge that when the rains come, and they will. A reminder, last spring, we had 14 inches in 2 days at one point.
But last year was kind of when you look at overall annual, rainfall, you're in the 50s, 52 inches for overall.
Yes.
Last year was closer to 70. Minimal sorting, right? So that's the reason it has the amount of water it has in it now, was because of that rain last year and what we had.
Which was sufficient for your pond, right?
It was sufficient to fill it up, yes. But since then, we have continued to draw down on the level. Like I said, in the other picture, is the actual spillway, not up there. In the other picture, the other.
Long way.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so that's the actual spillway for the pond itself. And at its fullest, it's about 12 inches into that rock. So it has continued to decrease since the last year. So the rains have not at this point. And this year we're behind about. We're behind about 5 or 6 inches just for the month of March between at the beginning of the year from the data I looked at yesterday.
Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to continue until the application can be updated and also a updated forestry plan and give an opportunity for me and Mr. Scott to maybe go together.
Okay.
For an inspection.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made and second. Do we have a vote on the motion? All for the motion? All against the motion? Motion has been approved. Next item.
Sorry.
Thank you. David Mays.
Mr. Mays is applying for a well at 4183 Billion Road. Public water is not available to the site. There are currently 2 active water wells on the site. The applicant is requested to drill a 4-inch, drill and utilize a 4-inch case, 75 gallon per minute water production well. The applicant states that the intended use of the well is for commercial farming and to provide water to a more remote portion of the property. The proposed well location is in 100-year FEMA flood zone. The applicant is willing to construct the well to appease any concerns regarding the flood zone. The well can meet all other siting criteria except the 100-year flood zone restriction.
The health department done the inspection for Mr. May's property on September 16th, 2020, September 16th, 2025 is when LLGNW informed us that the water could not be supplied for this particular area. So on October the 1st of 2025, I done the inspection for the water well production on these 28.7 acres. And due to the location of the proposed well, there was only basically 3 criteria that I could get visual things from, because it's out in the middle, as you can see, out in the middle of nothing. Nothing but a lot of trees. That's it. I can't measure a tree, but the property lines were definitely nowhere in sight. So that was fine. What brings Mr. Mays to the groundwater board is the proposed well that he wants to have installed now falls into the flood zone. And there are siting criteria for when that happens. That it should be at least 2 feet above the 100-year flood zone in that area. And it has to be approved by the department, even though LLGNW will not supply water.
Hello, how are you all? Thank y'all for your time. We come today, I feel like this, it's an automatic denial whenever we're in the 100-year flood zone. But we have, the depth of what that would be in that exact area. We have a design with deep concrete fitting, so that well top will be sealed and 2 feet above that 100-year flood zone, so we'll be completely safe. This same design, the same well, everything has been previously approved by this board. 2 properties south, so we kind of followed that direction to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row so that we could have a well in the otherwise area that will flood. And that wellhead will be on top of that 100-year flood zone. That water will be reaching Crowley's Ridge before it reaches the top of this wellhead. We'll also be powering that well with a mobile unit so that whenever the floods come, then we will be able to do that up. The well will be sealed. So we have those numbers, we have the design, so we just ask the board to approve our ability to build this well. Thank you.
Questions from the board?
In relation, it says the property has 2 active wells on it now. Where would the third be in relation to those 2?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. So when I started this process, like the field itself, it's here that we're doing some hopefully sustainable organic farming in a small patch here. We originally sought the well here, and then I learned that I was going to be delayed, and for me, delay is cost money. So what I did is I drilled the first well here, and we went, pretty deep, and then it just wasn't producing. So then, like, I paid. If y'all don't know how wells work, which maybe y'all probably do, it was new for me, but I paid all this money for this well, and it just isn't giving us the water because it's on top of the bluff. And so then you have to decide what you're gonna do and like how you're gonna eat that. So then I went back and like the easiest way for me, because also I got power after a 36-month journey from MLGW to pull over to this well. So that's an electric well, which the plan was if I could have an electric well, then I irrigated 1,700 feet with PVC pipe, which is another cost. And then the well just wasn't producing enough. So then we drilled it instead of going deeper, because when you go deeper, then you lose the efficiency of the well. So then we could go deeper. Also, the well drillers charge by the foot. So as you go deeper, to get into like wherever we were at first to get water, we're gonna be deeper. It's charged by the foot. So it was we just proposed the easiest thing was to then just drill another well like 200 feet away, and I tied those together. I ran them, and it just doesn't produce. So then I came back and said, all right, well, I'm going to go through my original plan, which was to go through. And it's been a delay, right? I was here in the fall, and this was 2 years ago. But it has to be done this way.
Yeah, so what steps are you looking at for a third to actually produce?
Yeah,
Now that 2 have missed.
obviously also well drilling is kind of this gamble, right? So you never know. However, we've got a well that's 400 yards to the north, and then we have a well, the one that was previously cited that was approved by this board to the south, and being kind of in between those two, hoping that particularly the well to the north, about 400 yards, that well produces plenty of water. So, the hope is that we go down 210 feet, and then we've got all the water that we need to service a 4-inch well. And then I'll have to bring a power unit down there, which the current wells are nice because they're, we flip the switch. but it's just not.
And the previous two wells, are there plans to, are you still planning on trying to use them in some fashion? Or would you be sealing those so that they're not inactive and just open casing?
No, I plan on maintaining those two wells also as kind of a backup plan. Really, I could split those into two houses. I could put homes up there, and those homes could have their own individual wells, which that's not my plan. Like, this is my personal project. And this is my personal land, so I don't intend to do that, but I want to, those wells are running, I can run those wells, I can wash my hands up there. But, you know, I plan on maintaining them. However, $500 a year per well, that's news to me. I heard that for a woman. Hopefully, I'm not getting that $500 a year bill times three. That would be. Is that a reality I'm wondering right here on live TV?
Are the current wells, do you use them at all for commercial irrigation or for farmland?
Yes, I attempted to, I ran them.
Right.
I ran them and ran them.
But you do plan on continuing to use them, you have some farmland up front, and then it's at the back of the property that you'll be
Yes,
using the next well.
so as, there's water here in this photo, but the first field is here, the irrigation comes here and then splits. And then the irrigation starts here for this field and then really with the well, which is proposed to be right here, we'll be able to water all this, and these wells will be able to hopefully maintain this. Because there's not gonna be any way to get the water. And that was the other design issue. It's like, where do you put this well? How do you move the water? Like, once you put it up, and originally we were gonna be here, so we could move the water both directions, but. Now, this was also the highest point, and also we'll be able to get the drill unit down this field right here, because that's as it was described. There's some wooded areas there that are going to, we have to navigate that area too.
And I think we asked you to come back because I know you had, I believe it was, you had pictures of what was done to the south of your property. Right, but were we wanting to see your own plan, or just that you had the actual numbers for your own wellhead above the 2 feet level, is that?
So the reason that I'm back is because the first time I had a meeting, I didn't know about it, and I also.
Oh, that's right, we just looked at the pictures, but you were not present.
Yeah, I also had a new address out there. I guess it was sent via mail, whatever it was. I got the denial of my field was also news to me. So then I was like, no, please get this back in front of y'all, and so I can come in. Explain what happened.
Are your existing wells also located within the floodplain?
Yes, sir. They are up on top of the wall. And so the design will be different, but we're prepared with the measurements of the survey we know how high it's gonna have to be 2 feet above that plane.
Above grade?
And it's current.
The plain grade, not just grade, but the plain grade, the floodplain grade
Yes.
above?
Yes.
Chair, Griswold, is it appropriate for me to ask questions of staff at this time?
Yes.
Sorry, great, thank you. I have a question for our parliamentarian or attorney. It's a procedural question. With everyone who's present here today, do you need a yes vote or a no vote from me? If there are yes votes for items, would an abstention keep them from giving their appeal here today for me?
Also abstain.
That would not result in any sort of automatic denial of appeals being heard today. Okay, okay, great. So it's just a simple majority vote.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
No, just another quick question, the new well that you're proposed, again, you're hoping that it produces. And you were talking about the costs, the yearly cost potentially, the the third well that you're proposing to drill, in the event, would that well be able to water all of the field that you have out there?
The main field, the main field is what we're. not-
Right, sure, yeah.
It's not getting the water, and so that's the main focus of the project, and the question is the $500 gonna stop me? Right now, it's not, luckily I am employed, not retired, it's gonna hurt, again, this is not good news on my annual budget. But that's a completely different discussion. The $500 is not gonna stop me from the project right now. Or the additional $500, which they on top of it, but now.
Are there any motions?
I would motion to approve, can I motion?
Yeah. I guess, so I'm sorry, one more quick question, just again, as being kind of new at this, all the calculations and everything that you have for, the construction, are those provided to Shelby County?
We're basing it off of,
I'm just curious about the approval process to ensure that, what's going in there is correct, basically.
Construction.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's my understanding that, there's an elevation reading at the site, and then once we have approval, we have the well drillers come out, and the county comes back out there and make sure everything is approved as it's gonna be done right. So, but in order to get the well drilled out there, we have to have the permit, then we have to schedule. Another thing that I would ask is that that I would also be given some, sometimes it seems like your permits are good for 60 days or 90 days. This land also is subject to, I really have to wait until kind of the moon aligns. Everything has to be dry, get down there, all the way down there. And it's just the nature of the land. So, and I don't know if that's, put that in our approval that I have a little bit more than 45 or 90 days, but when I scheduled my last one, we also then we have to go to the well drilling company. I would also ask that my application was put in for water well works, and I've asked that that just be approved for Wilson. Water well works not drilling wells anymore, and they're just not in the business. And this is all news to me just recently. So just a little, I would ask for approval with that, the time pending the weather, and I'm in a rush, but also I've been waiting almost 5 years to get everything lined up to be at this point, and that's a part of that. One thing that's been happy to delay is I tried to put it on top of the hill and irrigate it without having to go through this process. This process is going to be necessary for me. We have the time, and the well drillers know that level.
But can I ask a question of the health department then? In terms of, like I said, it does the health department go out and ensure, I mean, obviously, I guess there's you're trusting the professional status of the well driller, I'm assuming, to construct it correctly in a 100-year flood zone, and then the health department comes out and inspects that construction to ensure that it's constructed correctly above the 2 feet above the flood level, is that correct?
So yes,
Okay,
so in order for any well that's in the flood zone, it's got to, we have maybe 2 or 3 scenarios where the water well is over 10 feet high. So they really took that into consideration on flooding for that particular area. And we did a drill report from the actual well driller. So we go out and do those calculations. In the case of the change of ownership, we require them to fill us an updated or revised application.
right.
So we have all that in mind. And as far as Mr. May's question about the extension, we try to work with our well drillers. So when we don't issue, even if you all approve the application to be proceeded with, we work with them because they have they work in different counties. So if they tell us that we can't get to him until May, we may make his, do his application or his permit for May 3rd and try to work with them so we don't have to get it amended.
And also to follow up, they come on site, like the well driller set. What I call character to drill up. They don't start drilling until they get the green light from the counter at film sites to make sure they're.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve contingent on the design, keeping the well above the flood zone.
Yeah, that's,
A second,
yeah, I second approval.
alright, a vote. For the motion to, say that one more time, Tony? I mean, John,
To approve contingent on, the design of the well, keeping it above the floodplain.
all in favor, raise your hand.
I'll abstain.
So I got 6 and 1 abstention, is that? That's correct. Okay,
All opposed? You have a vote.
okay.
So if he submits the plan to the health department, for the well to be elevated, he will not be required to come in. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. He would not, if he meets the contingency, he would not.
Thank you all.
William Bond,
Mr. Lee Vaughn, for water well at 8751 Highway 70. Public water is available to the site, through the city of Bartlett. The applicant is requested to drill and utilize a 4-inch case, 22 to 24 gallon per minute, water production well. The applicant states that the intended use of the well is for lake retention of a pond on at least 1.5 acres which is 1.5 acres in size, situated within a 12.12 acre property. The applicant completed merging 2 properties, parcel 1, which was 8.01 acres, and parcel 3, which is 4.037 acres, to create a single parcel which fully contains the lake. The well can be cited criteria.
Health Department inspected his property on October 17th of 2025, for his well. And all the criteria that, the department needs is, were met. Mr. Bond is actually in front of you guys, because in the agenda, it says that yes, we can supply the water, which you want as well.
Good morning, I'm William Bond, and I'm here just to request for your consideration, a permit for a well at 8751 Highway 70. It's in order to keep my 1.5 acre lake at full run.
questions from the board?
Does your house utilize public water?
Yes,
The house on the property, so the well is just for the.
just on the lake,
Filling.
just on the lake aesthetics.
Did you say aesthetics?
Yes.
I want to keep it full.
Aesthetics is the term you used?
Yes. And plus cultivation.
Um. With the section 12.01. What is it, I1, talking about refilling a lake, provided such lake pond or similar continuous body of waters of less than 1 acre in size, with the total parcel of land being no less than 4 acres. And the house does use Bartlett water.
Yeah.
Right. I guess. Once again, because I'm new, I suppose, I feel like I'm new every time I come here. Is that? I know there's an automatic denial because there's Bartlett says there's public water available, but is this? What's in this? Statute, is that grounds for? An automatic, not automatic approval, that's why we're here, but. Is if it meets this criteria. Regardless of the purpose, is that? Something that we have to approve, I guess, is what I'm saying, one where. Maybe that's a question for.
So in these cases, when the board looks at variances, it should be considering justifiable reasons for providing variances, knowing that sometimes undue hardship, different factors like undue hardship, it should be justifiable reasons for, why the board would grant a variance. Sometimes if the water cannot be supplied and it creates harm, and there's no other way, no other technology, things of that nature, but it should be justified.
So we're not. This is sort of an outline of. Of an approval, but there still obviously has to be a justifiable reason for it. How long have you? How long have you lived at the property? What have you noticed about the lake levels, I guess, in terms of just the natural refill with the rainwater?
It evaporates pretty bad in June, July, August, and September. Then it's pretty unattractive. And I just want to try to maintain the level of the lake.
Has there been any, cost calculation with what it would take if it was, if you were to use potable water, water from, the available water that you have already to fill up the lake? Maybe it wouldn't be full, but, partially, or to keep it from drying out.
I don't think I could fill it up with a hose.
Sure, but I'm sure I was just curious.
I think it'd be a lot of water, a lot of expense versus the well.
I'd like to ask a question of staff, on an earlier item we heard, from the representative of the jurisdiction, in which the well was to be drilled. I see our Bartlett representative isn't here today. Historically, do the cities in which these requests are made weigh in on these requests?
You're asking me?
No, sir, I'm asking staff.
So as far as the municipalities, when they came together and if water can be supplied, the health department does not have the authority. This will be responsible. We present it to the groundwater board for that as well. So we do have, when they say that they can supply, we have to bring it to you all.
Yeah, I think I was more question. I appreciated the context around externalities around these sort of proposals. I was just curious about the historical practice of this board. having, do you typically hear from the representative of the municipality, that the request is made in? Because that context was helpful for earlier item.
We normally do, but he had an emergency today, so he could not be here.
Has he articulated his opinion to staff?
He has not,
Okay, thank you.
but we do have a letter from the city of Arlington.
Is this a, Mr. Bond, is this a pre-existing, like, did you dig this pond when you bought the property, or was this pond already existing when you bought the property?
Like a long time ago.
Gotcha.
Certainly body motion.
Yeah, like I said, for us.
We can discuss amongst.
We don't
Oh, okay, well, gotcha.
numerous places.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Well, my hesitation is to, for the area that we live in, I mean, I understand wells for, commercial purposes, for farming purposes. Wells for, aesthetic purposes, well, I understand we can have droughts and whatnot. I also feel that, just for where we live, that's just sort of a reality, and there's lakes that all over this county that just have to, and fish and everything that have to worry about. They don't have to worry about when they get their water. They get the water when it rains, and when it dries up, it dries up, and I think, I kind of have a hard time approving a well for something that's just purely for aesthetic purposes only, as opposed to someone's livelihood.
So there's no second. So is there a new motion?
I mean, you can always deny it.
So is there a motion?
So you make a motion, and then you do a second, and then if you don't like it, then you deny it.
My motion to not. To deny, thank you. Wow.
Is there a second? Alright, a second has been made, your vote, motion to deny the application, the appeal. Everybody raise your right hand if you agree.
Sorry, I'm sorry, John. I mean, I'd like to hear, I don't mind hearing why you'd want to approve
Well,
it. I'm not.
If I bought a piece of property and I had a pond on it, and we ran through droughts, I also would like to fill it, because it does get nasty when they start getting down, and he's got fish in it, he'll have a fish kill, and his whole property will stink. And
Even with city water available.
yeah, I would want my system filling, like, I run utilities for Collier. I don't want to be filling everybody's lakes in our system, because it would put a lot of stress on the system. So that would be the concern I would have. Because if you say, yeah, we're gonna require that everybody fills their lakes with city water from the city system, well, then everybody who has a lake now is filling their water. So now, when everybody decides to fill their lakes, because I can't tell them when to fill their lakes, they all decide to do it at the same time. Every single pump in my system turns on and runs at 100%. And if he overwhelms our system, then all of a sudden I get pressure complaints, because I can't keep the pressure, because there's just too much water going into.
I see your point.
Yeah, I see. So I guess.
It kind of leaves you with, fewer options as to how to take care of it. You don't want to put the property owner in a bad spot, where now they have this thing that used to be beautiful, that they paid a lot of money for. And now, it's an eyesore, or it's an issue for their property, so.
But we don't know its current condition. It is horrible, it's horrific, or smelling, or.
No, you wouldn't know, but it's also, it's a pond, so it's gonna change from year to year, depending on the weather, whether it's dry. I just know how I would feel if I was a property owner that owned a piece of property with a pond.
Can I ask a question of the applicant? Yes, sir. Thank you for your presentation, sir. Do you know when this pond was constructed?
Almost 30 years ago.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is this the first time you've requested, for a well?
Yes.
Have you noticed, is there a reason that you just noticed like a noticeable, uptick in the well drying up or water quality issues or fish kills? Is that why?
Just a little lower level of the lake.
On a consistent basis now?
Have you lived on the property for,
I just moved on the property behind this lake about 5 years ago.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, that's why I'm looking at it today.
Yes, sir.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we proceed to a vote.
Reiterate that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we know what we're
So
voting on.
there was a motion to deny the application. And there was a second. All to deny the application, raise your hand.
I'll abstain.
All in favor? Application been denied.
Well, can I ask the question? What's the purpose of number 1 and 12.01?
That was my question.
You have public access to public water?
It says fulfilling the lake, providing such a lake, continuous body of water is not less than an acre and a half. And only 4 acres. So the well may be approved of this.
Raven, that was my question earlier, like
That's what it says.
with I-1, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, point of order, I believe the item's been dispensed with, so, I'm not certain if I can continue a conversation.
Yeah, so I'm kind of lost in where the question is now, but again, it has been, it has been included because there was a vote on it. Based on that, it's already done, but to answer the question, that's why he is here, because if the department makes a decision, the board has an opportunity to either, grant this, agree to that, confirm that decision, or, deny that decision. So, I hope that answers the question. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Next,
Why don't,
it was one voted on and great answer this question. So next we have Phillip Langsdon.
Back license, not residence. We receive our because of all of this is service.
So we move next to the Scheldt estate.
Did you hear about what Dr. Langston, why he's not here?
yes,
Okay.
I did not.
I'm sorry.
He was called into surgery, so he had to miss again.
Plastic surgery.
Next on the docket is the representative for the Smith estate. It is Mr. Tanner at 54 South Wright Station. Public water is available to the site. The applicant is requesting to utilize a 4-inch case, 100 gallon per minute water production well. The applicant states that the intended use of the well is for lake retention, irrigation, and a sprinkler system. Applicant states that the previous well was removed due to expansion of structure and is requesting a new well to replace the old one. The lot is 12.32 acres, and the well can meet siting criteria. However, this is a location where the health department did not have any documentation of the old well. We did go out to the location, we took the previous well driller met us out at the location. As the well driller, and we did locate the well.
Okay, I'm presenting today, 54 South White Station Road. And we, the health department did an inspection, conducted an inspection on February 17th, 2026. And on the property, we cited, MLGNW said, yes, they had existing main insufficient capacity for adjacent on the property, said that they had sufficient, capacity of water for the property. Also, and everything as far as the siting of the property was correct. They had public water, the flattened site, the 50 feet of the property line was sufficient. All of the siting criteria that we met for Shelby County was met at the time of the at the time of the siting. So he's basically appearing because he is trying to do well water usage for residential irrigation, lake retention levels, and sprinkler system on the property. And he wants to know if he can supply them. Oh, MLGNW, said yes, they can supply water at sufficient capacity for the property.
All right, so Tim DeSalvo is my name, general contractor and working for the Scheldt state, and we went through the procedures, but one of the ladies on the job site. We looked at the well, we were granted a permit to abandon the well, which we did that and inspected it. That gave us an opportunity to add on to the existing house. This property, a little history about it. And it was bought in the 30s. They built the original house. The property to the north, which is now owned by the Bell's family, was part of the Scheldt estate to begin with. They then sold the property to the Bell's family, and consequently, Mr. Bells has put a well on his property to maintain the lake you see at the top. The Scheldt family had this well, which is a relic, which we actually say pump because it's 90 years old. It had leather rods that went down 160 feet. We took all that out. finesse on. Adding on to the property and it's staying within the family, so it's a generational home. Their hope is that they have the abundance of wildlife, that they have geese, swans, ducks, that frequent this pond and live on it. They come in from all over the Wolf River, and heron, they show up. They have aquatic life. It's just really the haven for wildlife. It has been having a problem keeping the water level up lately, as they've been monitoring this for 90 years. It has decreased the shoreline. It causes trouble for the fish. So they have invested a lot of money to redo the shoreline. Just recently, with riprap and just to manage this water and to try to maintain it, but that's not going to help the water level. So, we're just asking if we had a well, we'd like the well back, and they do intend to keep the water level up. They want to have an organic garden, their grandkids are into that, and also to maintain a little bit more. So that's the purpose of me coming to transform you guys today. And it is some 800 feet from that, who knows? And then I'm not a scientist, so I don't know how chlorine and fluoride and all that is affected the tree for its filtration system or something. But this is the reason we're here today, is just to ask again. I hope that you understand the reason behind it.
Questions from the board?
I have a quick question. I just want to verify that I understand this correctly. So there is a well that was already on the property. Are you planning to use that same well or drill a new well?
Right, okay, so the well that was put in the 30s was to the south of the house, and it had a pump house filtration. It was magnificent. I mean, they even poured a cistern for the pump to be submerged, so you didn't even see it, because it was close proximity to the house. So, but in the expansion plan, the footprint of the new addition set top the well, so we had to tear the cistern out, take the pump house out, move the pump. And of course, they inspected us capping and filling grout into the aquifer seal off. So that's the reason we had to give up. And then we're asking to place it.
Is this a natural pond? Was it dug by the family?
It's great. It was natural, but it was in the 30s. I believe it was there when they bought the property.
You know about the pond to the north that was originally part of the footprint of the property?
I'm not sure that that's Mr. Bell. Now, I will say that whole property was owned by the Scheldt family.
Right, that's why I was curious if it was done by them, or if it was all pre-existing to them owning the property.
Mr. Bell's looks more dug than the Scheldt, forgive me, from this subject property, looks more natural than Mr. Bell's.
This is a little elevated. Mr. Bell's is elevated of the Scheldt pond.
Scheldt, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it, sir, no disrespect.
Rudy Scheldt, there. May see his name on a lot of buildings at the University. He's a big tree. So, yeah, so that, it used to be a lot, the water from Jack's pond would come down spillway into this lake, but now look at the spillway over the last year. Basically stays dry. We get a 16-inch rain and then, here it comes.
My other question, has it, ponds, again, their natural life cycle is filling it, oftentimes, and so has there been any thought to remove, or is there any excess sediment that has come in and filled up the pond?
So we
years.
went and dredged out the pond on the perimeter, on this west perimeter, some 400 feet. Maybe, and then we put riprap in and to maintain and now sod that area that you see this grass actually. You have the house, the trees, and then that's about south football field. They maintain that grass and for presently got, you know, seed, line, grade, and kind of reestablish the grass.
How often would you say would they have to use their, or did they use the previous well to fill up the pond? At what months or?
Well, historically, it was the beginning, it was very used, but this is already, that's, Susan, she's the eldest of the 4 kids that own this property, of Mr. Shelby. Says just in the last decade, she's becoming aggressive, worse, the water is lower and lower and. Yeah.
And then, my other question, it was also stated that they wanted to use it for irrigation of the property, for potentially just personal use of a garden and concern about chlorine and fluoride. Have they looked into any potential alternatives like rain barrel capture? I mean, it's a large property, you know, rain barrel capture, any type of filtration. I mean, chlorine does dissipate, you know, fairly quickly out of any type of potable water. And so has there been any
There was a
thought
conversation,
too? Yeah,
conversation about, putting in a cistern and then collecting rainwater from the house.
right.
To then fill that up, be able hopefully to pump that back roots, because they do have a barn. It used to be an active farm. They had 9 stalls in this barn. They was built 100 years ago, and it's down there. Yeah, so that is, Marley Fields is landscape architects involved in this, so that's big. That really got all that specific.
Sure, yeah.
For work.
Right. Yeah, because that, you know, that's, I was just curious if any thought had gone into, some alternatives. Yeah. And then the irrigation, what are they wanting to irrigate? Just the lawn area, the
Just-
front lawn area and whatnot?
The topography of this lot is the house sits up high and it all flows back and then flows to the street. So it sits up on the house and the property set up. So the main goal would be the minimum amount of landscaping around the house. And then with Bermuda, they've had pretty good success over the last few years because they don't have irrigation out there. And when you have a drought, they have these drought pods, you know, they'll drag that up. That. So they're not really going to just overwhelm. And she's very conscious, very conscious of water usage. It's just mainly, they're not going to have to set and run every other day, you know, to find their system.
Thank you for your presentation, sir. Sounds like a remarkable property. When was the well tap? When was the original well abandoned?
I think it was it January? Yeah.
Oh, okay, so this year. Okay, yeah, approximate's fine.
Its permit was issued on the 12th of January of this year, and we went out probably a few days after after that, not too long. This day was January 14th.
Was that well in active use up until that period, that time?
So this fella passed away 5 years ago. That's when it wasn't really, so about 5 years ago, all those things, yes, get shut down. There was a route, and it was unbelievable. Filtration systems.
And last question, approximately, yeah, I see you mentioned the Bell's property multiple times. I see there's additional parcels on the map in front of us. Do you have any idea how large this parcel, if you were gonna bank the original Bell's property with the other parcels, are, how large this piece of property is?
Believe the Bells is around, Bells would be around 10 acres, and this property is over 12.
Yes.
And the pond is 2.69.
Oh, thank you.
So we could easily go back on the assessor here and just click on, or the register of deeds and click on the adjacent property. Get that acreage to do the math.
Even if you just zoom out a little bit,
Yeah.
just get, yeah,
No.
curious, yeah, thank you.
There you go. We could scroll down to.
I guess my question would be to Raven. There is, if I'm allowed to, am I allowed to ask a, okay, I want to make sure I'm okay. I know, is there any grandfather clause for any of this? I mean, there's no grandfather clause, is like, because they've had a pre-existing well on a property, does it not
Not
automatic?
aware of any of the rules and regs, it would be in the rules of our water rules, well rules and regs, and I'm not aware of any.
I just wanted to make sure.
Here's the 9.8.
So historically, if there is if we do find a well on the property, if it had been documented, they would be able to repair or replace. But they would still have to come before the board because of our new regulations.
Gotcha, okay.
So, but because they were changing the total footprint of it, they feel and abandoned. And since we didn't have any documentation, we didn't have right to issue them a
So even, and again, this is for my own understanding, if that well had been documented, they still would have to go through this process and there still would have been an automatic denial because their water was available to the property.
Correct. It was, and it's available, so we try to follow the rules to the T.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, that's why I asked that question, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, I think it'll, probably people maybe know my opinion, I once again have a hard time approving wells for aesthetic purposes. I know that, once again, I know there's wildlife out there, but I also think that just ponds are natural, that's the nature of having a pond, is a natural fluctuation in the water levels, based on the climate as it goes. I mean, some years we're gonna have drought years. Last year we had 20 inches more than normal, thereabout, and I think that's, once again, I feel like that's just sort of the nature of a pond, when we have it for aesthetic purposes, and so that's, when it's for aesthetic purposes on a residential property. I feel that it should just be allowed to recharge as nature intended.
I asked a question. Even though the neighbor has, even though the neighbor just has a well, just seems I would hope you take into consideration that, history of this property. It would be great. We looked into that, because I have to go back and tell them that.
No, and I do, and sir, I feel for you, you know, you're presenting the information as you have it, and, you know, we're not lifetime appointees, I think that's part of the, you know, the brilliance of the board is you get different opinions and different, folks on the board, and I was not around for whenever the Bells property had their well approved, and so I can't comment. On that specific.
May I ask a question prior to further motion or approval thereof? What if any of the Schmidt family, we're not talking about the Belts, but the Schmidts, are they currently involved in any conservation efforts with the university or in general with any of our fine constituents here today? Are you aware of any of their involvement in anything like that? Well, now the reason I ask this is because we got an existing well for almost 100 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's just been capped off for a little over a year. And so I'm conflicted as it was to the last one we just heard for Mr. Bond, just for aesthetics. So can you answer that? Do you know if they're involved in any way? Will be willing to be?
I know Susan is and they give a lot of money to a lot of causes, the arts. I know that they'd be more than willing to get involved in that. Now, I can't say that I know that she is, because
okay, that's all I'm asking.
I would think that she's involved in several. She's a very kind lady. I mean, she was given to a lot of folks in a lot of universities and all.
Yeah, now I'm not by any means saying it's contingent upon investing in any of our conservation constituents. I'm just asking that question if you know if they are currently involved with any conservation efforts within the county.
Personally,
that's why. Okay,
I could find out.
Me personally, I'm leaning towards approval because of the existing that's just been capped off for a short period of time. I'm just mulling it over. Excuse the interruption, sir. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna make a quick comment. The reason why I made a motion to approve it, because, well, everything I said before on the last one, but also for this one, now you're talking about somebody who had a well, who's following all the regulations to close that well out because he needs to move it. Who's not really creating any more impact than what that property's had for the past 100 years. So to me, it just seems like the natural thing to do.
Your statement leads into my question. That is, since this previous existing well just very recently been capped, how much was that well repurposed for pond elevation, irrigation use, or anything like that before you decided to expand the footprint of the home, cap it, and do away with it? You know, obviously, the immediate need for a well now and the very recent capping of an existing well, you had it on site. That's where I'm kind of hung up.
So once they switched over to public water, I'm not sure when it was, 50s and 60s, and they ran hose bills out hundreds of feet in all directions, the barn, all the way down to the beginning of the pond, to the front, back to the lookout. That was all serviced by the, well, that time. No potable water going to the house, that was, you had direct lines from, you know, she's been.
And I want to throw one other thing out. Whether you're pulling it out of a well on site or pulling it out of the system, it's all coming from the same. Sure. So I didn't know if some of the concerns were about conflict. So, you know, if you're making them take it from the system, it's the same amount of water they take.
But I think most people wouldn't end up filling their lake then if they had, that, I guess that's my. Thinking.
Or you'd have to fill it in. Didn't have a hole in your yard.
It's just a point of consideration for the board. I'm not a stormwater expert or anything, but I appreciate board member Holtz's perspective. And I think she's given some good thoughts in terms of rainwater collection, cistern. I think those are probably really good tools for situations like this. But this property was developed over 100 years ago. And I'm looking at the map in front of me. I'm certain that neighborhood all around it is not there 100 years ago. So the natural flow of water is probably likely to change by development over time. So whereas these lakes, ponds might have been able to fill themselves. I'm making a lot of assumptions there, but I think that is somewhat different than the case we had previously heard.
Procedurally speaking, I think there was a motion on the floor, and so there was an opportunity to discuss, and so in that discussion, we need to kind of clear up his motion first, and then the next steps.
Thank you, council.
So my motion is just to approve
Is there a second?
Second.
So now we take a vote. Vote to approve the motion. Everyone raise your hands.
1, 2, 3.
Four. Those say nay.
I see 2 against and any abstention.
One abstention.
And 1 abstention.
All right. The motion is approved.
Thank you all for, opportunity to speak with you and to save my life.
Can I still, am I allowed to say?
All right, next we have William Hudson.
No, it wasn't a bad thing. It was a good thing. Just don't remind me about regularly. I'm saying.
Yes.
That's awesome. I wasn't even asking.
Next on the case is Mr. William Hudson.
William Hudson.
380. Is Mr. William Hudson present?
That's right. We go first. He wasn't really. He was one of the 2 that weren't present.
Swan, right? That's it. All of it, and they're carrying all of groundwater.
Thank you, God.
Yeah. So where is it?
Mr. William Hudson. He will proceed. Next item. Next item on the agenda is presentation by Protect Our Aquifer.
Thank you.
Okay, before the presentation, we're gonna take a live. Perfect, right?
Sorry, I know, man, I was blanking. Okay, I didn't know that. Was somebody told about the ordinance for.
And then you buy the property, you get about a year into it.
I was just. I don't wanna like.
And then you're like, oh, we can.
And that was the kind of same thing.
And then you start going through the process and then. Because now you're not you.
There was an ordinance that they had to follow. You know.
Now you're standing up here.
Any monitoring investment size, you know, right. Something about what's in the market. Something about what's in the market.
It doesn't bother me at all.
I appreciated your. Being And I can see that we're definitely.
But how I got lead over.
But my thing is, I'm like. No, the board member was.
Well. What kind of? That's my concern. What we're doing is put on and say that I think if we own the west. And it'll be. Yeah.
That's why I think too. I mean. I think we should. I think it's.
It's just it's him now.
I don't know, maybe I mean, I understand why my friend.
Right.
And so, you know, it's our, we're walking through this here. So, Henry, on
That's like broke heart. So I think like very set a discussion like only 5 minutes or whatever, and then. So that's the only thing I was happy to do it. I was like, we actually have a motion that wasn't seconded. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so really silver is like, yeah, right, I know, so it makes it really hard to discuss. So what you could do is if there's a motion on the table, and it's for or against it, if you second it. You could set a time limit, you could even, whatever. Set a time limit on that, and then once that's finished, so then that way you'll hear everything that everybody has to say. There's not confusion, there's not confusion. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not just question area. Yeah. 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 Right, and it's not, really just that. Right, it's kind of the. I would say the guy, your official guy, is my, but. I guess. Well, wrong, but. So, bylaws, y'all need discussion.
And so, like I said, the people, make sure.
Yeah.
Everyone's well, great. Very amazing. I agree. Every single.
Yeah.
Somebody was.
It's condition.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I do, I do still.
Yeah. Yeah. This bylaw,
Lakes,
liberate, yeah, liberate from. However that's all.
but it's not for a long time. In the next. It's gonna be so.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna find me that one.
I will tweet it.
Okay, on the agenda, we have about that.
Good, almost afternoon, everybody. Thanks for hanging in. I know we had a lot of folks that had to depart for other parts of their life, but want to thank the Groundwater Board for the robust discussion that y'all just had over those appeals, for the staff bringing us all together today, and for all the people that showed up. Thank you. Yes, so what we're going to present today is really been a team effort. We're really thankful for everyone. I've personally been coming to the Groundwater Board for about 6 years now. Our science director for 10 years at least, and our founders that are here in the room today, they've been coming for 10 plus years. And we've seen a lot of growth, and we've learned a lot about this board. Before I get started, I wanted to speak to some of the appeals that y'all just discussed. You know, I think that's always some of like the most robust conversations we've had. And y'all really did your due diligence. And, you know, we've discussed in this last round of regulations rewrite that like farmers really need wells for irrigation. And there could be an opportunity here to revise the regulations for those types of, you know, floodplain construction, make sure that the staff has clear direction to where it doesn't need to come before the board. You just need to make sure that it's constructed properly, even if it isn't a floodplain, just let the farmers have their water. And then also one of the comments that we had made that wasn't accepted in the regulations passed in December was to not charge farmers $500 a year for their wells and really keep that specific to individuals that have big industries and private wells or that are filling up their ponds. I will talk a little bit about conservation fee. That is something that's in the regulations that has not been enacted. And that's something like with the property that we just approved, you know, if there was a conservation fee where that water is metered, that could generate funds to actually support building programs that support some of our concerns around these toxic sites that are threatening the health of our drinking water. So I wanted to kind of preface that because it was really good lead up to what we're talking about today. Y'all are very familiar with Protect Our Aquifer, but we do more than just come to the groundwater board, I swear. We do other stuff. But we've got a lot of the team here. We've got Mercedes Birch, our operations director, Dr. Scott Schaefer-Knocker, he's our science director, Rhiannon Watson, she's our advocacy coordinator. We are a strong team of 4 staff members. And then we have a lot of contract part-time folks that work with us. We have a lot of volunteers, a lot of water warriors in the audience. And, you know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So our goal is water advocacy around protecting the Memphis Sand Aquifer. It's really as simple as ensuring we have clean drinking water far into the future. We're based here in Memphis, but we also have expanded to Fayette, Haywood, and Tipton counties as well. And that was the announcement of Blue Oval City back in 2021. And a core of everything that we do is education. I mean, really, this stuff is complicated. We have this incredible aquifer formation below our feet, but it is out of sight and out of mind. And so we do a lot of translating of complicated regulations and hydrogeology and all this stuff to bring it to the people so that folks can really be informed advocates and really just inform members of their community where they've probably already done a lot of work, but haven't been able to fit it into these regulatory boxes. But that also extends to elected officials and to, you know, decision makers where this information, this access hasn't been very accessible. So we do a lot of education with adults that are already making decisions like y'all. So we've done a lot together. You know, these past few years, we really have done amazing things. One of the big ones has been allowing for community involvement. Back in the summer of 2024, formally added public comment to the agenda, and it's really an opportunity to hear from the community. We've updated this foundational ordinance you've heard about in public comment, 1987, and this gave y'all more power. You have rate-making authority that you did not have before, and it was really important to us that it had bipartisan county commission support. So we had Republican and Democratic support and got that passed. We have helped y'all increase permit fees, and your revenue is going to be close to doubling in these next couple of years as these new fees come in. And that was the first kind of overhaul since all these were established. And maybe we'll have new bylaws at the end of today or the next meeting. But that was something, you know, we've seen come in these meetings, just, you know, some confusion with staff and with the applicants, you know, how did this process supposed to go? And, you know, looking at the land use control board and other boards that have these types of appeal cases, how can this just be clear for everyone? So I worked with Attorney Chandler and Miss Sonia Owens to just creating bylaws, and that's just before y'all today. I think there's some opportunity to improve those a little bit more, but that's gonna hopefully just make these things more consistent and clear for y'all and the public moving forward. Oops, I don't know this computer yet, sorry. There we go. Okay, so a little Aquifer 101. If you look at that top corner, you know, we're talking about a massive formation. This is actually part of an 8-state aquifer system called the Mississippi Embayment. Now, if you were to slice that land in half, you get this kind of parfait effect. You heard from the gentleman earlier where he drilled a well and it wasn't very productive. So he wasn't really connected to the alluvial aquifer, and he wasn't in the Memphis sands yet. So he wasn't having a very productive well. There's supposed to be a well driller on the board right now. That sea is open, but that well driller that second time probably should have told him to either go shallower or deeper. I don't know why they didn't, but that's the, you know, thing about this geology below us. It is a little complicated. And when we talk about like our amazing drinking water supply, we're talking about irrigated water, and a lot of that fellows ran in the recharge zone. You see this kind of orange strip to that east side. That's in West Tennessee, really right at the border at Fayette County, where rain fell nearly 2,000 to 3,000 years ago and has been filtering super slowly through our deep sands. This is unconsolidated sediments. It moves super slow, and the water that we drink today fell as rain literally thousands of years ago. But we're seeing that there's actually this younger water starting to affect our drinking water supply. If you zoom in on those top few layers, we have the shallow aquifer, but it's known to be contaminated in a lot of places. This historical legacy pollution, a lot of that happened before the EPA was even established. Then you have this clay layer that we now know has naturally occurring breaches. You might hear windows, gaps, but it just means that old rivers eroded their way through that clay layer millennia ago, or from the fault line, the pneumatic seismic zone has created these faults. And so it creates a connection between the shallow and the Memphis aquifer. And why that's concerning is we do have contamination issues in the shallow, and they are threatening our drinking water supply today. And this became a really big deal in the public's mind back in the 80s. This is when we first started to learn, okay, wait, this solid clay layer isn't as solid as we once thought. It really is more like Swiss cheese. There is a lot of breaches that we didn't know much about it in the 80s, but we knew it was a problem. And there started to be contamination issues happening across the county. And what you're looking at here is a complicated map, but this is something that directs Protect Our Aquifer and our advocacy efforts. Like, where are we focusing our time and effort? So in the teal, those are all the well fields. That's MLGW, Collierville, Millington, Germantown, Bartlett, everybody. So we've got well fields scattered throughout this county. Then you're looking at the breaches, suspected and known. So those are the areas that we are pretty sure there's gaps in that clay layer. So that's where that vulnerability could happen. And then you see the recharge on the side. You know, you've got Collierville is pretty much right, we call the gateway to the recharge zone. Y'all are right at that edge where the clay pinches out. Bye, thank you. It's just some of our water warriors even thanks, Christine. And so when we're looking at, you know, what are these concerns? We're kind of looking at three main things. We want to know, you know, is there a contaminant concern? Is there something that has happened historically? Is there a drinking water well field where public health could be threatened? And is there a breach nearby that can connect those things? And examples like Davis Wellfield in Southwest Memphis, where Behave Pipeline was trying to come through. That's also where XAI is and where TVA coal ash pits are. That's an area of concern for us. You've got the Allen Wellfield next to the Memphis Defense Depot. Ms. Christina just walked out. She spoke about that today. Like, that is something that's already shut down wells due to contamination, and there's potential more coming. Sheehan Wellfield. This is, you know, near University of Memphis, former custom cleaners. There's TCE, a neurotoxin that's sunk into the Memphis aquifer now. These are some examples. And then you have, you know, Collierville Water Treatment Plant number 2 in the early 2000s. But these are all examples of like real threats to the public drinking water supply that this board was really formed to think about and address. And so, you know, this blueprint that we've presented to you today, I'm kind of going linearly, but I'm looking kind of like around page 11 right now, where we started kind of like lay out these real impacts. And in that section, we really start to think like, you know, what are these threats? But you have special powers. So, you know, back in the 80s, when we started learning more about this, the city mayor, the county mayor, and MLGW president got together and said, we gotta do something. And the pollution control division manager said, hey, in the regs, we can actually adopt from the state a lot more power and authority to think long-term. And so when this board was formed by an ordinance in 1987, it's still today the only entity in the state. Y'all are the only groundwater board in the state of Tennessee. We're the only county that permits wells in the state of Tennessee. And y'all are a big deal. You really are. And it was formed in response to these contamination issues and to think about long-term strategies. The past few years that we've been coming, you know, we talk a lot about these one-off wells, one-off appeals, and, you know, they all add to a cumulative effect, but we gotta like figure out this longer-term big picture stuff. And so when we think about, you know, who you are, what y'all are, you know, in the health department, you know, thinking about why it's in the health department, it's about drinking water access, public health. And so you have the water quality staff you have before you that, you know, for many years have been understaffed, under-resourced, not to anyone's fault in this room. It's just historically the health department's doing a lot. And so you have folks that are, you know, dealing with well and septic permits. And then you have the groundwater board, and that's 11 members. It includes the health department director, representatives from the utilities, a well driller, an engineer, and 2 seats for community members. And so we like to think about it kind of like the planning department and land use control board, kind of like how the staff's preparing stuff, reporting to the board, and the board can be thinking about this longer term stuff. Like they're about to go through this whole UCD thing as a whole, you know, that's a whole drama, not today's topic. But like, how does that, how can y'all set that vision and how can y'all help support the staff in growth of these programs? And in that 1979 ordinance, it's very clear. Create, adopt, implement a groundwater protection plan. Yeah, it's all, and there's these 4 lists of things they could do, you know, well protection, observation wells, analysis of existing and new wells. That's the program we kind of do have going. And then thinking about toxic spill prevention, so educating of actual industries and facilities that handle these things. The only plan to our knowledge is this plan that was released in 1997. So everyone that was involved in this, whether it was the board or the staff, you know, is pretty much gone. They're retired, and there were 37 goals that were set in this document. Only 4 have been achieved or are in action. So it's a long list of really good stuff, actually. There's a lot of good stuff in here, but there was no community input. There's no details on the timeline, on the cost of these things, on the partnerships needed to make them happen. There's like 1 line at a time, and it's like, that's a great sentence. It probably is like 5 years of work. So like, it was not very implementable. And so we really want to try and learn from the past and plan for the future. And that's what we're presenting you today, is this blueprint. And it's not the plan. It is not the plan, but it provides a synthesis of a lot of information in one place, taken from a variety of stakeholders, taken from a lot of community input and questions and concerns. And we really want this to be a guide for a community-led groundwater protection plan. And so the threats identified is in section 4. I think it's in like the page 24-ish range, I don't know. But you lay out kind of 5 key threats, and we go into pretty big detail. You know, legacy pollution, I just described some of those impacts. Overpumping, parts of the aquifer had actually dropped 125 feet, where we're seeing that drawdown and that connection with the younger water. Poor data management, just lots of silos. TDEC, EPA, Health Department, CSER, USGS, everybody's got their thing they're doing, but it's not coordinated and it's not transparent. There's limited monitoring. There's not a lot of support, a lot of funding to really have a robust monitoring program. Those agencies that I just mentioned, everybody's doing a little bit of monitoring, but it's not really coordinated. And then there are workforce gaps, everything from water operators, you know, at the utilities. This has been a big point from the state and even from national agencies that, you know, there's not a big pipeline for folks working in the water industry. And all these issues are decades in the making. No one person in this room is to blame for this. You know, there's not one agency at fault either. Like, this is a big problem and it's complicated, but it's left to local communities to figure out. There's no federal management plan for us to figure this out. This is about us coming together. That's why we think that collaboration is central to these goals. So what is a groundwater protection plan? It's laid out a little bit in your ordinance. And then in section 5, we go into more detail with 6 main categories, and we actually pick out case studies. So what's gone really well around the country that we could adapt for our needs? So things like well field management, wellhead protection program, pumping optimization, data management. We need to map where these breaches are and understand how land use above the breaches can impact our drinking water supply, but also the recharge zone. We don't know much about the recharge zone, and that's the good stuff. We want to make sure it keeps getting to the ground. Monitoring well programs, groundwater reduction plan, and then of course, in all ways, education and workforce development. And so a plan helps with coordination. It can help guide the use of funds at the health department. Like we mentioned, there's about to be some good new influx of sustainable funding. I mean, funding that's going to continue now into the future. And so, we ask, what's the plan for the use of those funds? How can they support staff and training? How can we start to address some of these one-off legacy projects like, databasing and digitizing all of the paper records? It was just mentioned at that old property in, East Memphis, there's an old well there that they didn't have record of. So actually going out and canvassing properties and figuring out what well has been properly closed, what hasn't been closed, understanding where these avenues of contamination can come from. The plan can also align with current public spending. Now, across the county, public utilities, they're spending $2 to $3 million a year on aquifer protection in some form or fashion. But like, what's that getting us? You know, we've got meter fees, all the public utilities are paying to the health department right now. Those have not been raised since they were set in the 1990s. There's wellhead protection plans. Utilities are paying University of Memphis either for those, but they've never been implemented into a real program. There's the aquifer study that MLGW ratepayers were paying the University of Memphis to study the aquifer. We haven't had an update in 3 years. And then there's the new water quality trend plan with MLGW and USGS. All of this is good stuff, but it's very siloed. There's not collaboration and there's no guiding light to understand how could all of these funds that are already being spent be coordinated and guided towards a specific program or project. And then a plan can help tap new funding sources. So I kind of mentioned a couple one-time projects, but then there's new ongoing programs we could establish. And in this groundwater protection plan, we want there to be very clear funding plans and strategies, not just like, wouldn't it be cool if monitoring well network? What's the staff time? What's the cost? Partnerships, data sharing, you know, all this cool stuff we could do. And so there's a lot of opportunities for more funding, and Protect Our Aquifer is absolutely here to advocate for that funding and how do we get that to this entity and to out into the community. So that conservation, potentially call it management fee, but that's something that's in the regulations that for these well owners that are filling up a pond, sounds like they got a little extra cash, could they support a nominal fee based on their well usage that could support a real program that's going to protect communities' drinking water supply, track plumes of contamination, catch it before it hits our drinking water supply. We could raise the meter fees, but how do we make sure that benefits the public water utilities? So we're not just, you know, funding for the sense of funding, there's a real reason for it. The USGS, they have a cooperative matching program, and a lot of the communities that we've listed in this blueprint, you know, they have these matching grants where they get like a free 25 to 50% of funds from the federal government to match the program that they've got established. We can make those types of things happen where we're getting a cost share. And there's the TDEC State Revolving Fund, specifically the Green Reserves Fund, and that could actually help fund a groundwater protection plan or new programs. So there's money out there. And we think that any new project program, we have to make sure it's tied to the required costs and staffing and partnerships. So with all this to be said, you know, the groundwater board, y'all are, you know, have your own lives, you have your own positions, but y'all were really created to be this unifying entity. And this is just kind of a quick dump of like all of the stakeholders in this. You've got obviously the health department, Protect Our Aquifer, the community, that's our little cute icon over here, but USGS, MLGW, University of Memphis, Millington, Arlington, Collierville, Germantown, EPA, TDEC, Bartlett. All of these are stakeholders in this, and it isn't all on the health department, it isn't all on the groundwater board, but it is on y'all to put that vision together and make it happen. And so the groundwater board was created to bring stakeholders together. The groundwater protection plan can unify that work that lies ahead. Protect Our Aquifer has spent a lot of our time and our funding to lay out the threats and opportunities in this blueprint. And we want to be here to facilitate the groundwater protection plan and make sure that it has community input, buy-in, and is led by real community concerns. And so the question we have for y'all is, where do we go from here? That was the mic drop moment. No, but we do want to have a few minutes left over for just some dialogue and just questions or impacts that are, you know, that are in your utility or your community. Like, where is there technical support needed from the federal government, from TDEC, that could be in this plan that support the work that y'all are doing?
One sort of this may be more procedural question that I have is I know it's always been explained to me that we can't really meet outside of a public space, correct? So if we're trying to get some sort of like, you know, groundwater protection action plan together, is it we have to come up with our own ideas individually, and then only then when we come together can we meet to discuss and move a way forward, and then work on things individually in between meetings, or can we get together to work on some of this stuff, or does it have to be publicly available outside of those meeting times, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that goes under the Tennessee Public Meetings Act, and so when it comes to deliberating on any substantive matters, then no, you cannot meet individually, together, you cannot meet with another voting member. You can meet with outside partners, you can meet, but as long as it's not a voting member, you cannot discuss those matters. Now, what could happen is something we call executive sessions, and that is with your, with council, to discuss legal matters or confidential matters, together with the board outside of the public.
So if we wanted to move forward with a groundwater action plan, like it would have to be at these meetings. Or could it be a separate meeting, but we would just have to make it available to the public, 30 days notice, or is it just these quarterly meetings that we would have to?
So the chair or majority vote by the board, under the new bylaws, actually, but normally under our rules, if the board wants to have a special meeting and there's a majority vote to have a special meeting to discuss, it would be a public meeting to discuss, plans for, moving forward with the protection plan.
Thank you.
You also, figure out ways that you use these board meeting times to have like report out plans. You could also consider, having like some a groundwater board meeting that really is just like a working session, thinking about like workshopping, these different components. You can also consider hiring outside counsel and outside consulting support to do something like that we could provide. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Simon. Bye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is discussion of bylaws.
So the bylaws were given to the board members at the previous meeting. Hopefully you had a chance to look over that.
As Tony said, we received the bylaws at a previous meeting. Is there a motion for the bylaws?
When is discussion happening? After the motion?
After the motion.
My apologies.
I'll do a motion to approve the bylaws.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion concerning the bylaws?
So I do have, it was brought up briefly, and it was, one thing that was talked about earlier was the enhanced public opportunity and availability of information. So as it currently stands, to my understanding, this was what Raven had given this was an email that Raven sent to all of us, basically that if for appeals and for application, the only opportunity for the public to see those appeals, to see those applications, is if they would have to physically go down to the health department, right? And request that information.
Open record.
And that was my other question, was going to be, is it like a full, like they have to officially put in a FOIA for those? And the meetings are, I know they're 30 days out. Is there any indication on like when that, hey, we're gonna have a meeting in 30 days, we have 4 appeals, is it just something basic like that, but then it gives no other information necessarily on the appeals?
Yeah, so to address that, from a procedural standpoint, and a legal standpoint, the communication is mainly, we're putting requirements on the health department that is not necessarily a legal requirement for them to publish full records. There is certain interests at play, looking at privacy issues, for looking at issues to provide a fair hearing to the applicant, if we're allowing kind of external pressures and communications on those, because these are specific cases about specific properties, not necessarily affecting many third parties. I did think of it maybe a compromise, as a suggestion or recommendation for the board, rather than, full application being published with private information such as email addresses, phone numbers, and things of that nature. There, it could be, I would recommend maybe even just publishing a case summary that still provides the public with fair notice of what the case is about, the property, that is being discussed. Again, it is a board's decision what occurs, but, from a procedural standpoint, that would require the health department to go outside of its duties, legal, duties of what is required to do.
I know there was some mention of other public entities that publish some of this type of information. Is that just basically them? Again, they're doing that out of sort of their own goodwill towards the public as opposed to any sort of rules.
Yeah, there are different standards and different duties for different boards. I know, like, for instance, we talked about county commission, they advise on, a lot of, they make decisions on a lot of policy matters. But here, this is kind of quasi judicial, where we're actually hearing individual cases. So certain things, again, it could be on their own bill, they have different statutes that they're under, different obligations. We're here as the regulatory, enforcement board, they don't department, and whereas other boards may be not deciding on administrative, policy decisions.
And to sort of put this discussion to the group too, is, I understand what you're saying about sort of public interest. And versus privacy concerns, which is, I also think that's very important. I don't think people's addresses should be necessarily put out there or anything like that. But what about, I know mostly what we hear is residential. Well, that's not true. I guess we hear some residential, but we also hear commercial. Or I don't think we've heard any really industrial or anything yet from the board, but is that potentially something where, because industrial use or potentially commercial use would maybe be more affecting of, this is just a question I'm putting out there as opposed to a suggestion, but would that be something that could be, more information could be available to the public, and then residential, could be a small summary, or maybe they should all be the same, just a small summary for all of them. I don't know what that would necessarily look like. I haven't really thought that far, but anyone with more experience or more thoughts on it.
From my perspective, I would say that, I would err on the side of summarizing the general ideas of what is being presented. I know from my standpoint as a operator, water plant operator, if we start talking about groundwater protection plans, and if we're in here and we're talking about well sites and things of that nature, those are protected. They can't be published, distributed. They're protected under Homeland Security. So things like that, you would have to be kind of careful with, for sure. You don't want residents requesting that information and making stuff available to them that they're not supposed to have. So I would always err on the side of caution with any of this stuff. I mean, you open it up too much to the public and you open up a door for possible, issues. That's where I would say.
For staff, when do you typically have these packets ready? I mean, is it, do you typically have these packets ready 48 hours in advance of meeting, just functional?
No, we try to have them to you about 10 days before, I try to have them, at least a week before that.
Thank you. That's incredible. So what in this packet would not be subject to Tennessee Open Meetings Act right now? Is there anything in this packet that would not be subject? So if somebody came to the health department today and requested this entire packet, could they get this entire packet?
It would be, so what would happen is it will go through our public records office and then it'll be reviewed for any confidential information. It would be redacted. So we do have a person that actually looks at it from a legal standpoint to see what needs to be redacted.
What would be redacted from this? Because we do, obviously it is open to the public. And so if they came here, then they would see all the information, addresses, where they're gonna put the well, and all that sort of stuff. So if it was, requested beforehand, what is I guess the difference and what would be redacted then?
And I think more so, I think from the health department standpoint, it's more so is putting an extra burden on them to have to do this every meeting, to have to make sure they have it 10 days before. That is not legally required for them to do. So administratively, you would be placing an extra burden on the department to have to redact all this information where we actually have that function in Shelby County that does redact and look to see what needs to be removed, and what doesn't stay.
I would, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I would assume that all of his homeland security concerns be top of that list.
Oh,
You know, 'cause those
100%.
would not be subject to Tennessee open.
But then
Meetings
if we're coming here and I mean, and I don't know how often this would come up, but then if we're coming here and just having to discuss it, would those locations specifically continue to be redacted even from our knowledge, from the public's knowledge that's here?
I'm sure we have access to all privileged information. It would just have to be redacted, if those, the homeland security information.
But if we have that information here and the public is sitting right there and it's presented
That's what
there.
privacy information doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because these all have applications with addresses and names of individuals that were publicly
Right,
posted 10 days,
Right.
in advance. And so if anybody wanted to contact these individuals, we're living in 2026, the year of our Lord.
Yeah.
It's the internet that
Yeah.
exists, and you can find who owns these properties in less than 5 minutes.
Right.
And so that part doesn't make a lot of sense, to me, but the homeland security aspects and the extra staff load that it would take to, redact information, that does track.
So this so this is provided to us out of a courtesy, which I very much appreciate. But we wouldn't necessarily have to have this before the meeting. It would just be the person who could potentially just come up here with none of us not having this, right? And just present their appeal, or is this something that we would get eventually?
The board has privilege to this information.
Sorry,
The board members, you all have the privilege to this information.
gotcha. So we would get it anyway, regardless.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I just meant,
They're just talking about like Jeff walks up and wants a
Yeah.
copy of
Right.
everybody's stuff.
Right.
And there's, you have to think, there's gate codes on here, there's personal information
Sure, yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah.
out to the public.
Right, yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's a big piece of it. I'm just trying to get a sense of,
Just, just in interest of time, and this is my first meeting, so I'm not offended if you guys all vote this down.
Yeah.
But I will offer an amendment to these bylaws that kind of captures some of this conversation. And I'll just read it, and then if it's something that, we're just discussing, is that all right, Madam Chair?
So before we do that, we need to acknowledge John's original amendment. So the original amendment was to approve the bylaws. Is there a second?
I second. I got a second by Chet right
Yeah,
there.
all right, second.
Okay,
For
so
discussion.
now we take that to vote. Everyone voting to approve the bylaws, raise your hand.
I was trying to vote to amend it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But you guys can vote down.
That's the second.
You can change the vote.
So now, so we have a second, and now you can say your amendment.
That's, and I'm happy to give this to the council too. It's something so it's on the page 4 of 5, public notice, agenda posting. I would just add, it says, it reads right now, a proposed agenda for each regular meeting shall be made publicly available at least 10 days before meeting date when practicable. I would amend that to say a proposed agenda and meeting material subject to Tennessee Open Meetings Act available at least 10 days before the meeting date when practical. So that would mean the health department's just responsible for publishing information that would have otherwise been subject to Citizens Open Meetings Act within 10 days. Or at least 10 days before the meeting, when practical, which I think is an important, is an important piece of that, when practical. So it's just adding the language. I can give it to our attorney if you want.
Oh. Is there a second for this amendment?
I'll second.
So is there a vote to approve the bylaws? You have a second.
So you would vote on that.
So first, there a vote to approve the amendment.
It would be to approve the amendment with the addition of the revision to the bylaw. Correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Motion
And then
to
I'll
approve
second
the
that.
amended bylaw.
Yeah,
Second,
I'll second.
then we take a vote.
Yes.
All in favor, raise your hand. Right. All vote. Good, thank you.
So you're gonna send that wording to?
Yes, yeah. I'll give
thank
you guys
you.
before I leave, but,
Okay. Next item.
Next item, is there other business?
Hang on, so you voted on, I understood that was a vote on the amendment.
You did approve
To amend the bylaws.
amend the bylaw.
Oh, and approve. Okay.
Next item, other business.
I think the other business is we've been talking about the groundwater action plan. And I think when we have these meetings with the appeals and whatnot, they obviously get very long. And since we can't fraternize outside, which I understand, I do think it would be beneficial to pull another meeting. We can set it even at just an hour, I think, just to have some discussion on how to move forward. We have this, I think this would be very helpful, obviously, to move forward with getting some sort of groundwater action plan in the works, how it would look or how we would do it, just something. And I think that would be really important, because I think on these ones quarterly, it's just not as conducive to having a special session to talk specifically about.
So is it just a forum to kind of get on the same page with where we're at? What's being.
Yeah, ideas, open forum about starting this groundwater action plan for Shelby County, or not Shelby County, but for Shelby County, sorry. Can't talk.
So is there a motion?
A motion to have a special meeting before our next quarterly meeting to talk about moving forward with our groundwater protection action.
Is there a second?
Second.
We're taking the vote.
Granted.
Motion granted.
It may be a good idea to discuss available dates, availability, propose one today. And then
I'd have to be in front of my calendar for that.
So the next regular meeting is June 11th. But your special meeting you want before that.
Yeah, I think to keep it fresh in our mind, Raven, is this something where you could send out, I know we often do poll, like a doodle poll or something like that.
I can do that.
Okay, Sonia, yeah, if we could.
if I can, these, the Protect Our Aquifer did a lot of work on this. There are a lot of working people that are part of this group. If we can put some options on there that are in the evening, I know that's awful for us. A lot of us have a lot of evening meetings already. But if we can put some options on there in the evening, I think it might be better for members of Protect Our Aquifer that want to attend that work session.
So.
I would say.
Yeah, send some options. I think, can we discuss at least a month, like what month?
Well, she got extended.
Yeah, I think it should be in May.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think this one.
No, I agree. I think in May.
Okay,
Thank you.
is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.